All right, we're still here with the morning crossfire. Of course, I did promise you we'll talk about the tax reform bill currently before the National Assembly. What you need to know. Some of you have been talking about it. Some of you have been reading about it. A lot of analysis, flying left, right, and center in the country from public affairs analysts, commentators, and professionals in the field of taxation. But what exactly is the tax reform bill? What is it meant to achieve? I think someone commented during the paper review that he loves the tax reform bill, sent a message because of beer tax, beer consumption. Is it all about beer consumption and how much you pay or you get as VAT from beer? We'll look at all of that this morning as we discuss the proposed tax reform bill with the chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele. Good morning to you, sir. Joins us virtually. Good morning to you, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele.
Good morning, Kofi Battles, and good morning to our audience.
All right, you're the man of the moment. I mean, you've been busy. Your committee has been doing a lot of work. We've been talking about reforms and hearing a lot. You have your hands full. Yeah, I'm telling you, because it seems the work to be done is so much. Reform is not an easy thing. Let's get straight to the matter. Tell us about this tax reform bill, because we have what we call the Finance Act, which has been in place, I think, a bit of amendment and then signing into law under the former administration. Is this a new bill that will, render the Finance Act rather null and void? Is this something new? Or are we looking at just basically rejigging the old laws?
All right. Thank you very much. So I think a bit of a background. In 2016, 2017, I was also involved under the previous administration with some other Nigerians in developing what we call a national tax policy for Nigeria, where we try to identify what is wrong with the system. How do you ensure that you don't tax poor people, small businesses, multiplicity of taxes? So once that policy was approved, we needed to amend several laws to be able to implement the intentions of that policy. So that was what led to the Annual Finance Act, of which I was also a member of the committee that was working on those Annual Finance Acts. So we've amended several provisions of the law. For example, the introduction of 25 million naira threshold, under which small businesses will not pay VAT, was one of those things that was introduced. The same thing for exemption of minimum wage of 30,000 naira was also introduced as a result of that, and so on and so forth. But what we have now realized is that by amending the tax laws every year, we began to see some uncertainties. And there wasn't a lot of public engagement anymore to consult with wider stakeholder groups. And so when you create uncertainties for businesses, it becomes another problem. So what we're trying to do now is to do a comprehensive reform so that there'll be no need to amend the laws every single year. And therefore, maybe for the next 5, 6, 7 years, people can know this is what they can take to the bank, plan their investments, and just run the businesses and grow and make more profit. And then as a consequence, they'll then be able to pay their fair share of taxes. So in a nutshell, that is the background. So the purpose of these reforms are, number one, to identify what is wrong with the system and try and correct it. And what that means is, for small businesses, they need to breathe. We need to allow them to grow. We need to allow them to create prosperity for themselves, their households, and for the country. This is the largest segment of the Nigerian economy. So what we've done so far is exempt them from withholding tax. Our threshold in the bills now is taking the exemption to 50 million naira a year. We've proposed a higher threshold for exemption of minimum wage earners, so 70,000, 80,000. You shouldn't have to pay any tax at all. We've also introduced measures to ensure that the multiplicity of taxes that they are paying are eliminated. So they just pay 1 or 2 taxes, and then they can focus on growing their businesses. In addition to that, these reforms are helping us to be able to attract investments. We have provisions in our various laws today that if you want to invest and maybe set up a factory, you pay all manner of taxes. For us, that does not make sense. Why do I want to tax you up front when you are trying to invest? And if I frustrate you and your investment is too expensive, you're going to ask yourself, why don't I go to Ghana, produce in Ghana? We have the ECOWAS Treaty and the African Continental Free Trade Area. Just bring it here and sell in Nigeria. And then what happens? We lose employment. We lose the opportunity to lift our people out of poverty. So these are issues we're also addressing in those bills, and also ensuring that there's equity within governments, different tiers of government on one hand, and then with the people, so that those who have a little bit more would contribute a little bit more, particularly the high net worth individuals who, based on the available data, are not paying their fair share of taxes. Whereas the low income earners are the one paying PAYE and all of that, and they're struggling to even make ends meet. So what we have done is to raise the threshold for exemption so that those poor people can have the space to be able to at least make ends meet, while the rich people will contribute a little bit more. So in a nutshell, this is not a reform to try and extract more taxes from the people. No, far from it. It's actually the opposite. It's to try and provide a lot of relief to the people, and then together we grow the economy, and when the economy grows, then revenue will come. And when those revenues come, we also have proposals in our reforms to ensure that they are applied in the best interest of the people in terms of how they are spent, the priority of spending, the quality of spending, and how we hold government to account. Right. That is the only way we can build the Nigeria of our dream.
Interesting. If you're just joining us, we're still talking about Nigeria's tax reform bills, and of course, your thoughts are welcome on the numbers we usually advertise: 0201-277-0993, 0201-277-0993, and of course, we have our female line 0201-465-7190. So, Mr. Oyedele, let's look at the four bills in question, and can you maybe zero in on each of them so we know what the differences are? We have the Nigeria Tax Bill 2024. We have the Nigeria Tax Administration Bill. They sound alike. So you please help us understand the difference. We have the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, and we have the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill. Can you help us just briefly differentiate between these four bills?
Yeah, indeed. So we currently have different tax laws, and most of them are very old and obsolete. Like the Stamp Duty Act is a law of 1939. So of course that means our colonial masters wrote the law for us. So there's so many laws like that we inherited from the colonial masters. Not only that's not really the problem. The problem is that they're no longer fit for purpose. We are now in 2024, and some of them are as older than Nigeria's independence. So we decided that the best way forward is for us to propose that those tax laws all be repealed. And let's write brand new tax laws for Nigeria, whereby we eliminate multiple taxes. We ensure that whatever taxes we have left are few, broad-based, easy to collect, hard to evade, and easy to monitor, and high revenue yielding. So on that basis, we put all the major tax laws that we think Nigeria should collect going forward into one piece of legislation, and that is what is called the Nigeria Tax Bill. In other words, this is the bill that tells you about the taxes you should pay. So if, for example, it has provisions about what taxes a company should pay on their profit, what individuals should pay on their income, value-added tax, excise duties, and stamp duties, and a few others. The second one is the Nigeria Tax Administration Bill. Now, this bill is telling you how do we administer our taxes. For example, we don't want 60 agencies of government chasing people to collect taxes and levies. We want to be able to harmonize how taxes are collected. How should you register for tax? Should we be using different identity if you are in Lagos, another one if you are in the FCT, another one if you are dealing with the federal government? And then there's so much confusion all over the place. So this bill also addresses identification of taxpayers, registration of taxpayers, how you do assessments, how you do collection, And if you default in paying your taxes, how do we enforce compliance? Because the reality is that at the end of the day, once you have protected the poor people and small businesses, everybody else should pay. You should not allow anybody to evade taxes. So that is what the Nigeria Tax Administration Bill covers. Then the next one is the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill. So what does that mean? Currently, we have the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FRS, and the Federal Inland Revenue Service is not the agency, is not the revenue agency of the federal government, but the name is suggesting otherwise. So the taxes that the Federal Inland Revenue Service collects are shared by the Federation, corporate income tax, VAT, and so on and so forth. So we think that a true reflection of the role and functions of the FRS is to name it as Nigeria Revenue Service. Beyond that, we also want that Nigeria Revenue Service to be the platform for us to connect with Customs Service, with Internal Revenue Service at state level, building capacity, using technology for administration, simplifying how we administer taxes. So that is the bill on Nigeria Revenue Service. And the last one is the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill. What does this mean? Currently, we have the Association of Tax Authorities in Nigeria. It's called the Joint Tax Board, JTB. So this JTB was established by just one paragraph of the personal income tax law. And they were supposed to come together and focus on matters to do with personal income tax. And we said to ourselves, no, the issues we deal with go far beyond personal income tax. Why don't we expand the role of these associations of tax authorities in Nigeria beyond taxes and call it Joint Revenue Board, and give them not only the power to advise, but the teeth to be able to bite if any authority is misbehaving, so that they can respect issues around harmonization, consistency of application of rules, and protecting the vulnerable people. In addition, under that bill, we are setting up the Office of the Tax Ombudsman, that will protect vulnerable people. If you're a small business, if you're a tailor or vulcanizer or mechanic today, and somebody comes to you and say, "Oga, you never pay tax, VAT." You say, "What is VAT?" And the guy say, "Oga, you're owing 4 million naira." Pay. You have no idea what to do. So this ombudsman will protect you. So those are some of the provisions we have in those 4 bills.
All right. There's a lot to talk about. Yesterday night, the Nigerian Governors Forum met. Part of the agenda was the stamp duty and others.
Stamp duty.
Yes, so there's a lot to talk about, but please permit me to bring our listeners in at this point before we run out of time. 020127709993. Female line is already active and we have someone there. 99.3, good morning.
My name is Joy.
Joy, where are you listening to us from?
I'm calling you from Ibadan.
Okay, your question?
My question is, has Thursday been changed from Health Thursday?
All right, yeah, we have a deviation for today. Joy, thank you very much for your time. 99.3, good morning.
Hello, Kofi, good morning.
Welcome. Your name, location, and contribution. All right.
Calling from Lex.
Welcome.
Kofi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Your question or contribution, please.
Yeah. All these policies, they are all good. Please, when are you going to implement it now? And again, you know what killed all these small businesses? Light, Oga. Thank you.
All right. I think the cost of electricity is what she's talking about. The bills are before the National Assembly. She wants to know when they're expected either to be passed or not passed. So, where do you expect action to be concluded at the legislative level?
Yeah, good question. So I can assure her and our listeners that some of these measures that we are proposing, some of them have actually been implemented. For example, the withholding tax exemption for small businesses has already been implemented because by law, we didn't need to go to the National Assembly. So we got like an executive order and it was signed and it has been approved. It will take effect from 1st of January 2025. That's less than 2 months away. But for the major proposals we have, they are in the tax bills that is currently with before the National Assembly. We had a very productive engagement with the House of Representatives on Monday for the whole day, including all the leadership, speaker. They were there all through. so they have better understanding of what we are proposing now, because there has been a lot of misunderstanding, misrepresentation, misinformation out there. So we're able to clarify that, and they're quite supportive. So while we cannot predict how soon and how quickly they will do their job, we believe that they are determined to get this done as quickly as possible. Our expectation is these laws will be passed before the end of this year, and therefore we'll have the opportunity for the commencement of the implementation to happen around maybe April of 2025.
All right, interesting, very interesting. We followed your appearance at the National Assembly with the committee there. 99.3, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Welcome. Your name, location, and country, please.
Yeah, my name is Wale. I'm calling from Magodo.
Welcome, Wale.
Okay. My question is, one, they said that VAT would be from unessential, as in essential products. Are you with me?
Yeah, go on, Wale. We're listening to you.
Okay, yeah. So I'm asking, are they removing VAT from electricity?
All right. That's an
Then I have a second one too.
Yeah.
And when you talk of withholding tax normally it says they are removing from small businesses. The threshold they put for small businesses are structured business that already they are not even paying it before. So when they say they are removing it, it really doesn't make any difference.
All right.
So it's just like something to just say they've done the win. But the major thing is electricity. Are they removing VAT or they are increasing it on electricity?
Thank you very much. All right. So since you talked about essential items, he wants to know if you're taking out VAT from electricity.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll answer both questions. They're good questions. So what we have proposed in those bills is that 82% of what the household consumes, we are removing the VAT and reducing it as much as possible. And on 18%, then the VAT rate will be adjusted upwards so we don't lose all the revenue for government. So in other words, for every 5 things that the household will buy, there'll be no VAT on 4 and there'll be VAT on 1. But specifically on electricity, what we have done is to remove VAT from the entire value chain from generation to transmission, and there's only VAT at the final stage. So that is what we have at the moment. We have removed suspended VAT on diesel, on PMS and all of that, including gas. But like I said, for electricity, it's removed.
More news and information coming up. We'll be back in a moment.
The tax system, with 4 new bills currently under consideration by the National Assembly. The bills are the Nigeria Tax Bill 2024, the Nigeria Tax Administration Bill, the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, and we have the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill. All right, and of course you had our guest, who is the chairman of the Presidential Panel on the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform, or better put, the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee, talk about these bills individually. For instance, he said that a Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill will create a tax tribunal that can attend to the cases of ordinary Nigerians who feel aggrieved over tax and revenue issues. It will have a tax ombudsman who will be acting in that regard. It will also have the spine to regulate and to even deal with people who go against the law and all that. He's explained in clear terms what these 4 bills entail. We're taking your thoughts and your comments. We have a lot of questions for him. But before we went on the break, Mr. Oyedele, you were responding to a question by one of our listeners about the tax on essential items like electricity. And he asked a second question, which you were also responding to. So please conclude so we can ask you. We have a lot of questions for you this morning, sir.
Yes. So thank you. So his second question was, you have a lot of small businesses that don't pay tax anyway. So what's the big deal that you are now exempting them from tax? So on one hand, his point is valid, right? But we cannot say because people are evading taxes, then you should just let them be. Because what we are trying to do now is to create a system where it will be hard for you to evade your taxes. So if you must do that, we have to ensure that we are not going to be enforcing tax collection on small businesses. That is why we have now decided that legitimately let us exempt those small businesses from paying taxes. so that we can then focus our attention on the big companies and the middle class, the upper class, the elites, and get them to pay tax. And then we follow the money to ensure that it's used for the purpose of the people. Even though we said some, small businesses are not paying taxes, but the reality is there's some that are paying their taxes. So what that also does is it creates a disadvantage for the people who are honest and doing the right thing, while the people who are dishonest and evading taxes are getting the advantage. That's not how to build a society. So in a nutshell, we recognize some people who don't pay taxes, but nonetheless, we still have to exempt, from taxes. And there's some taxes where even small businesses cannot run away from, like VAT. So because somebody will charge them VAT, whether they like it or not, by exempting them from VAT, then it means that, so although not what they buy, but what they sell, it means that the burden is lighter on those small businesses.
The VAT issue is very important because, some items are government charges VAT on some items 2 times, 3 times, even 4 times. I don't know if that is can amount to double or triple taxation. So you go buy the raw material. The company that buys the raw material pays VAT. It produces it and then sells it, and the buyer pays VAT. And so the cost is put into the final product, and you're still paying VAT on top of that. I don't know if something that is part of what you want to eliminate.
Yes, good point, Kofi. So this is a big problem today. Not only just the raw material, sometimes, you also have to buy equipment for what you are producing. It could be a small equipment, it could be a small machine for doing your business, and you pay VAT on it, and you cannot get that VAT back. So what we have done now is that any business that pays VAT, whether on an asset, whether on raw materials, whether on services, to be able to produce what they are selling, all the VAT that they paid, they're going to get it back. So by getting their VAT back, their costs will go down. So which means if they are not all very greedy, if they pass that savings to the customers, you should actually see prices coming down. So this is one of the fundamental reforms that we have introduced. We had a session yesterday with CFOs. We had a small room. It was filled up with more than 100 people, and then online we had over 3,000-4,000 people, and we explained this to the CFOs, and they're all very excited about it because these are the numbers people, and they're quite technical. You can't go and be telling them dumb stuff. So overall, I think, to be honest, everybody should be excited about these reforms.
All right, quite interesting. You talked about the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill, which will basically create a body to replace the Joint Tax Board, the JTB, which has been there for some years now. And the Joint Tax Board contains the revenue authorities of all the states. Sir, when we talk about states, it's another ball game, and you know this very well. It's a tall order. When Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala was coordinating minister for the economy, she did her best, using the instrumentation of JTB, or the platform, to say, hey, let's have one sticker. I want to talk about stickers. That's one aspect, only one sticker, which is a big issue. Let's have one sticker for everybody. Just that one sticker. You have JTB sticker. You stick it on your car, your truck, your bus. Nobody's going to stop you if you move from Port Harcourt to Owerri and through the villages in Owerri, the different local governments. Or you're going from Port Harcourt to Umuahia, and you go through all the different... You're going from Lagos to, I don't know, maybe... Ogbomosho, and then you go through all the local governments. No one is going to stop you and say, you've not paid in my local government, bring money. And they had that JTB, and there was a law or some sort of statement by the minister. It didn't work, sir, because I know how many times when I was in Port Harcourt on Nigeria Info, I remember how many times you had to shout and scream on the radio that Obiakpo is not meant to collect money of sticker for you. Then Port Harcourt, Faga will collect from you. Then Emoha will collect from you. So all the local governments want their sticker. You know that. So how are you going to overcome this? How will this new joint revenue board overcome this?
Yeah, that's an interesting point you raised, Kofi Patel. So interestingly, I was very much involved with the reform that led to that initiative. In fact, it was the original initiative of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. And then we presented the recommendations to the National Economic Council, which was approved. And part of the implementation of that was that joint sticker where you get one sticker and you can move around. So I can tell you a lot about why it hasn't worked and what we are doing differently, but I won't go into those details. So what we have done now is first to identify what is the root cause of this problem. So part of it is in the Constitution. We have a constitution under the 4th schedule that says local government can collect radio levy, TV levy, bicycle tax, wheelbarrow tax. Like, God, for goodness sake, in 2024, who is taxing wheelbarrow and bicycle? So we have said to the lawmakers, let's amend the constitution. But while we are waiting to amend the constitution, we believe that if you have the power to collect a tax, you also have the power not to collect it. Nobody's going to sue Nigeria and say you're not collecting these ridiculous taxes. So that's one thing we have been doing. But the most fundamental thing we have in this proposal is we want to outlaw cash payment of any tax. And we want to outlaw physical blocking of roads to collect taxes. If you take out those two, you solve the problem. There is not even a question of sticker. We don't want stickers anymore. Just don't come on the road.
Is it possible? All sorts of people block the road. All they need to do is wear a t-shirt or wear a reflective jacket, a vest, wear a cap, and then they stop your car and they take your key. And they move with policemen. They move with policemen.
We know it will not be easy, but the moment you allow people to collect just one tax on the road, then you can't tell the difference between the 50 other taxes they are collecting on the road. So that's the mistake of the past, right? But if we say no tax can be collected on the road, it means anybody you find, whether they are police, whether they are wearing yellow jacket or not, they are there illegally. That's step one. Step two is that if they force you to pay a tax that you're not supposed to pay, all that you just need to do is collect their sticker or receipt, and then you upload it. There will be a portal. And then once it's validated, your money will be refunded to you. Our proposal is even that you get an extra 50% for the headache that you have gone through. And then the team managing this will get another 50%, and the local government or state that collected that illegal tax from you get charged 200% of what they've collected from their allocation. So that way people will know that there are consequences for not complying with the rules and what we've agreed to do as a people. We just can't continue like this. There are people transporting yam from the north to the south, and they're paying more than 500,000 naira in these illegal fees and taxes. Yeah. And by the time the yam gets to Lagos, the poor man cannot eat yam again. Yeah. So we have to do something differently going forward. Why this is not going to be a silver bullet, but we do think it will move us significantly in the right direction.
Interesting. Mr. Oyedele, I'm happy you were part of that JTB movement when Jonathan was president. But some of these beautiful ideas, wonderful policies, are not. Some will argue they're not practical in Nigeria. Why? Because of the politicians won't allow it to work. These politicians unleash their supporters on the people as settlement. And are you going to say to the politicians that the kind of things you used to give to your boys to settle them, you can't do it anymore, that they will allow that? For instance, we fought a battle for Port Harcourt, small businesses. Why? Local governments were sending people to them to collect money for dustbin, waste basket. So it was waste basket revenue. You go shop by shop, and they say you must bring maybe 5,000 or 10,000 naira for the 2024 waste basket. And the business owner said, but look at the one that you sold me last year. Look at it there. Someone called my program on my program in Port Harcourt. I have 5 baskets stuck. I'm not using them. And you must pay. You must pay. So, and this is a way to settle people so they can be settled for the political participation and support they gave to. So I call it settlement tax. Some other tax I call live and let live tax. So you have boys in Lagos. Let's use the Lekki, Ekpe Aja Lekki stretch, for instance. You can't move your goods as a businessman without money. You have to pay all sorts of. And all the roads from Lekki Phase 1 down to Aja, each of the estates you enter, most of them, from my observation, you have to pay somebody 1,000 naira and above. 1,000 naira and above. I've gone wrong.
So let me.
So how are you going to overcome this political taxation?
So there are three things we are trying to do differently now. Number one is there should be consequences for the level of government that is sending these people to collect illegal taxes. And that's what I explained earlier on. So whatever money they force you to pay, you pay it, you get the money back, and they suffer the deduction from their own allocation. Number two,
but sir,
is that when they
how are you going to trace when someone stops a truck that is carrying I don't know, maybe rice under a flyover, and someone say, "Hey, bring me money, give me 1,000 before you go." How are you going to trace the person?
Yeah. No, you pay and collect. You know, they always give sticker and receipts actually. So you pay. You pay and collect the receipt or sticker, and then you just upload it. You don't need to travel anywhere.
Some will not. They won't give you sticker anymore because they know the.
Yeah. So if they're not giving you a sticker, then the only way that can be addressed is also one of the things we've talked about, and you may have seen sometimes a few months ago when people said we are proposing that they should now recruit thugs to be collecting taxes. This was exactly what we're trying to address. To see how do you get those boys to leave the road, because they earn a living from it, even though they're doing illegality. It's hard to just allow them to ask them to leave overnight. They will frustrate the process.
Yeah.
So part of our proposal is let the level of government incorporate them in a decent manner, right? Do some little training for them. It doesn't have to even be in English. This is how to use the phone to pay taxes. These are the people that we need to pay tax. This is how much they need to pay. They now wear some, uniform. They go around trying to mobilize. They're not collecting revenue. They're just trying to educate people, and then they get paid a salary that can at least feed their family. So that way you're sure they can leave the road, right? So that's part of the practical ways to get these solutions done. And then the other one is, in the example you gave of the waste bin, I already have the waste bin and it's still there. And you're forcing me to buy another one. Today you are helpless. But once our bills are passed into law, you can call the tax ombudsman. The tax ombudsman will fight for you. He can go to court. He can get compensation for you. He can trigger some provisions in the law to force that level of government or the tax administrator to comply. So today you don't have any protection, but you will have a protection going forward.
You may need at least 1,000 tax ombudsmen, because it's going to be a tall order. I mean, in some states, I've had to, handle issues like effluent discharge. They will come to you and charge you effluent discharge levy. In our office, they used to bring a demand notice for generator fumes. Effluent. Well,
there's ozone layer. There's no ozone layer tax in one state.
Sir, in different parts of Lagos, I've received reports. People are packing their own belongings from one part of the state to another, and they will stop you and say you can't move until you pay me. So something is a big issue. One of our resource persons tried to move, like you said, yam. He tried to move palm oil from Akwa Ibom State to Lagos. He almost abandoned the things on the road. Now, before I pick the next call, this may be out of your I don't know if it's out of your mandate, but some of our listeners who are into the importation business have been crying for months. They've been crying for months. They are saying that they have had to abandon their goods at the port because the duty they're paying is unbearable. That is a big problem. So something that I don't know if it's something that falls under your terms of reference as committee.
Yeah, it does, and we have actually recommended a reduction in these duty rates. Since I think about 4 or 5 months ago. Unfortunately, it hasn't been implemented, but we continue to believe that this is the right thing to do to reduce the burden on people if we can reduce the import duty rates. But behind the scene, we have the opportunity as a committee to work with the tariffs board. So there's a structure within the Ministry of Finance that is created by law to look at these tariffs and recommend to the finance minister for changes to be made. And that process is now ongoing. And if we succeed in trying to convince government, people will see that relief from next year. So it's a point that we have noted. We're working on it, and we're hoping that it will be approved.
How businessmen who have complained to me time without number of some practices in the revenue service, I'm talking about the federal level now, where they say, you're owing the federal government 100 million. These are businessmen. Come and pay us 30 million, and we'll reduce the amount for you. And the businessman will say, but look at my records. I'm talking about credible businessmen who don't like to cut corners, and they keep their record. Look at my records. I've been up to date paying. So where is this coming from? I mean, I've not verified, but these are the reports we're hearing. You know better than I do because you are in the system. How are you going to, through these reforms, because you have the Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Bill, ensure that the revenue authorities are clean, treat everybody equally, just like it was when Professor Yemi Oshibajo and his ease of doing business team had held sway at the time, and they were able to act and work freely without any strings holding them.
Yeah. So that's an important issue. And we also, like you said, we are aware of this, but I wouldn't say just federal alone. I think it's even better at the Federal Revenue Service level. It's worse with some other levels of government. So there's a lot of corruption in the system and compromise. So what our reform is proposing is, number one, we want to take the ability away from the tax officers to decide who they will audit. We want that to be system generated through what we call risk-based audit. So the system will piece things together and say your information is not adding up and then flag you for an audit. So which means it's driven by data. That's number one. Number two is we are developing a whistleblowing framework so that if an officer decides to still go ahead and collect a bribe, it's easy to just set somebody up. And then you whistleblow, and we've given powers in our bills for rewards to be paid. So I might just be a staff that you did not promote me. I'll just whistleblow, and then the whole thing will go up. And then the other one is we are regulating tax agents, because some of these things are facilitated by tax consultants. So we have a provision in our bill that says, as a tax agent, you must do the right thing for yourself and help your client to also do the right thing. Should you fail to do that, both in terms of technical competence and ethics, you stand the risk of being deaccredited and you'll never be able to act as a consultant anymore. So in a nutshell, we're trying to protect the taxpayer, we're trying to safeguard them from the angle of the tax officer, and we're also trying to get the tax consultant to do the right thing. All of this will then be driven by data that will be tracked by the system. So again, we think that going forward, once the bills are approved, there will be a significant improvement and nobody can just come and harass you. And if all of these will not work, then call the tax ombudsman, and the tax ombudsman will call them into order. By the way, we don't need 1,000 and 1,000 of human beings on the ground to do the work. We just need to create the channels for people to put their complaints through. Once the problem is solved for one person, then everybody else benefits. So at one time, a step at a time, we solve the problems progressively.
Let's quickly talk about this VAT thing. North versus South. The northern governors are not happy. They feel that bill is discriminatory against them. What's your response to that?
To be honest, it's just misunderstanding. So if you make calls in Kano, in Kaduna, in Borno, in Zamfara today, using MTN is number one remitter of VAT in Nigeria. MTN will remit that VAT in Lagos because that's where their head office is. And Lagos State takes the full credit for all the calls that are made in Nigeria. So we said this is not fair. Why don't we ask MTN to tell us, my VAT is X amount, but here is how much I generated from each of the states, so that every state will take credit for the VAT generated in their state and get paid for it. I thought they should be commending us, honestly. If you buy cement, they build houses everywhere in Nigeria. Dangote can tell you how much cement they have sent to their distributor in every state. But Dangote will remit all the VAT in Lagos. Why is Lagos State alone getting credit for all the VAT on cement in Nigeria? By the way, Dangote is the second largest payer of VAT next to MTN. So we're saying, let every state take credit for what they do. The northern people should commend us. But for us, it's not even a northern-southern conversation. It's just about doing the right thing for all the states in Nigeria. So that's why we believe that someone picked one leg of the proposal without seeing the other leg, and they are raising an alarm unnecessarily. Once everybody understands what we are proposing, we really do not see any reason why they'll push back. But of course, if they say they don't want it, we'll retain what it is and move on, because our proposals have more than 200 recommendations that will improve the lives of people in Nigeria. We cannot allow one provision to scuttle the whole effort. If we need to drop it, we're more than happy to do that for the sake of progress.
All right, very interesting. I think that's a good note to end on. There's so many questions to ask you. We need to have you back, sir, before the end of the year so that we can conclude, probably do a review. But I want to say a big thank you to you, Mr. Taiwo Oyedele, chairman of the Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform Committee. People, he's not a politician, he's a private sector guy, all right, who has been roped into try and bring his experience in the private sector, to better Nigeria. Sir, thank you very much for your time. And please keep up the good work. Nigerians are hoping and banking on your committee to make life better for them, easier for them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.